Hello, my name is Catherine Barijo. I am one of the leaders here at LL Ministries Rwanda in East Africa, in the heart of Africa. I have been part of the leadership team here in Kigali, Rwanda for about 8.5 years. And I am happy tonight to join LL Africa, join LL Shearhouse for this healing service. I want to speak to you today from Luke 15. That we have a good shepherd, we have a loving father. And if there's one message that I hope and pray that you take home in your heart tonight, it is that the Father has not rejected you. The Father has not turned you away. Whatever your position, whatever you have done, whatever you are asking him for, he will not turn you away, but he welcomes you into his sheepfold, into his family. Let's read in Luke chapter 15, and I will share this with you here. Luke chapter 15, I will read from verse 1. It says, "Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, 'This man welcomes sinners and eats with them.' Then Jesus told them this parable. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. Then he calls his friends and neighbors together and says, 'Rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep.' I tell you that in the same way, there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not need to repent." We see in this story that the shepherd loves all of his sheep, each one of them. Each one matters to him, even the one who wanders off. The shepherd puts great effort to search and find that missing sheep. Maybe you feel like a sheep who's wandered off. The Father has not rejected you. Maybe your body or your heart need healing, but you feel like you don't deserve it, or like there's something between you and God that's preventing you from receiving his healing and his love. The Father has not rejected you. He will not turn you away. Let's look at the story of Naaman in 2 Kings chapter 5. In 2 Kings chapter 5, we read about this man who was a brave soldier, but in an army that was an enemy of Israel. And he even had an Israelite slave in his home. Not someone that you would expect God to heal. But Naaman had a problem. He had leprosy. He was very, very ill and probably in a lot of pain. And somehow he found out that he might be able to be healed through the God of Israel. Would God heal such a man, someone who was an enemy of Israel and who even owned Israelite slaves? Well, we see in 2 Kings chapter 5, what is God's response? When Naaman obeyed God's instructions, it says that his flesh was restored and became clean like that of a young boy. And we read later in the chapter that Naaman's heart was also turned towards the God of Israel through this experience. So despite the fact that Naaman was an enemy of Israel and mistreated the Israelites, still, when he came to God and asked for healing, God did not turn him away. The Father did not reject his request. Instead, he gave him instructions and gave him an opportunity for healing, and also drew his heart to find the truth about worshiping the true God of Israel. If the Father did not reject Naaman, the Father has not rejected you. What about the story of Rahab? Rahab was in a very difficult situation. We read about her in Joshua chapter 4 and Joshua chapter 6. She lived in Jericho, which was an enemy city of Israel, and she was a prostitute. She knew that the city was going to be destroyed and that she and all of her family would die. Would God rescue someone like Rahab when she asked for help? Of all the people in the city of Jericho for God to save, why would he save Rahab? And yet we see that Rahab is the one who asks. She asks to be rescued. She asks to take the side of Israel, to take God's side. And God does. The Father does not reject her request. Instead, he gives her instructions. She follows them. She places a red cord out of her window. She brings her family together in one place, and they wait for rescue. Not only does God rescue Rahab, the prostitute, Rahab, the enemy of Israel, but he also puts her into his own genealogy. Rahab is one of the great, great, great grandmothers of Jesus. And so she was not rejected despite her past, despite the mistakes that she had made. When she sought God, he welcomed her. He did not turn her away. And he even welcomed her into his own family in a very literal way, as his own grandmother, the grandmother of Jesus. What about Peter? Let's look at the story of Peter. Peter was a follower of Jesus. He was a disciple. He knew Jesus well, and he loved Jesus a lot. But he had some growing to do. He had some maturing to do. He vowed to Jesus that he would follow him to the death. He said he would die for Jesus. And I'm sure he believed it. But Jesus knew Peter better than Peter knew himself. And when the test came, when Jesus was taken away and Peter was afraid, Peter denied Jesus 3 times. He said, I don't know you. And we read about that in Luke 22, at the very end of Luke 22. It says that when he was asked again for the 3rd time, do you know this man? He said, I don't know him. And then he remembered what Jesus had told him. And it says, he went outside and wept bitterly. Peter broke his own heart. Through his own sin, through his own fear, he broke his own heart. But Jesus came and he loved Peter. He found Peter where he was wandering like a lost sheep. He asked Peter if he loved him. He gave Peter an opportunity to be restored. Peter said, yes, you know I love you. And Jesus gave him an assignment all over again, an important job in his kingdom. In John 21, Jesus tells Peter to take care of his sheep, to feed his sheep. And so we see that even brokenhearted Peter, who through his own mistakes, his own pride, broke his own heart, the Father did not reject him for his mistakes. The Father did not reject him for his immaturity. Jesus brought him back into the fold, and not only brought him back, but said, take care of my sheep, feed my sheep. What about the story of the prodigal son? We can look again at Luke chapter 15. We read in Luke chapter 15 this famous story about a young man. This young man rejects his father. He says, I want your money and I want to leave. And he takes his money and he goes. What a profound rejection to say, I don't want you, I just want money. And not only does he leave and take the money, but it says he wastes it on wild living. He didn't waste it in a failed investment. He didn't waste it in a business idea that didn't work out. He didn't waste it getting a useless university degree. It says he wasted it in wild living, a complete waste, nothing productive, just selfish, just foolish. Until he ends up destitute and alone because of his bad choices, because of his selfishness, because of his rejection of his father and his greed. And he ends up destitute and ashamed. And yet, what do we see in this story? We read in Luke 15, verse 20, it says that the young man got up to go see his father. And it says, but while he was a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him and ran to see him, threw his arms around him and kissed him. It says, while he was a long way off, the father saw him. The father was watching for him, hoping and waiting for his return. The father did not reject this prodigal son despite his sin, despite his foolishness, despite his wasting, despite his greed. The father did not reject him. The father welcomed him back home into his arms with a hug and a kiss and brought him back into the family. But there's another brother here. This is the older brother. He never ran away. He did the right thing all the time. It seems that he was almost perfect in helping his father. And yet, this brother also doesn't feel or know his father's love. When he sees his younger brother being celebrated, he feels uncelebrated and unappreciated and angry. He's angry that his brother is being celebrated. He needs a revelation too. This brother who always did everything right, still there's a wall between him and his father, who is a picture of our Heavenly Father. This brother also needs a revelation, the revelation that his father shares in Luke 15:31. My son, the father says to this older brother, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. Everything I have is yours, is what the father said to this son. The father did not reject this son either for his jealousy. Instead, the father showed him the way to his heart, showed him the way to receive and enjoy the father's love. The father did not reject this older brother, and he has not rejected you. He will make a way, whatever it is that you need tonight. Looking again at Luke 15, at the beginning, the parable of the lost sheep, maybe you feel like a lost sheep. Maybe you've never really knew the Father, and you're wondering if he would heal you, if he would, or if he would welcome you home. Or maybe you're like a sheep who got lost and you just don't know how to get back. Maybe you're more like a sheep who ran away on purpose, who intentionally left the fold. Or maybe you're a sheep who is right there in the flock, but you don't feel that you can get close to the Father. You don't feel that you can sit at his feet. You don't feel that you can come and enjoy his love and enjoy his presence. You don't feel that you deserve his healing in your body and in your heart. Whatever position you are in, whatever kind of lost sheep you are, maybe you need physical healing, maybe your heart needs healing, maybe you need to forgive yourself or forgive someone else. Maybe you just need a revelation of the Father's love for you, that he has not rejected you, no matter what mistakes you've made, big mistakes or little mistakes. He doesn't push you aside. Everything he has is yours. He wants to welcome you home into his family. In the presence of the Father, there is healing for your heart, and in his presence, there is healing for your body. The shepherd is looking for you to bring you back. The shepherd wants to welcome you home. Rejoice. Come and rejoice in the presence of our Father and receive his healing. Answer his call and return home with him.